Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to today's lesson. Now, this is the last Sunday of the month. I know throughout the month we have been learning about the series, Be an Example. We looked about being an example in conduct. We looked about being an example in love. We talked about being an example in faith. And today we are going to talk about being an example in purity. Magnificent purity, that's our topic for today. So what does purity mean? Purity simply means being free from any blemish. In this case, being free from sin. And magnificent is something that is excellent, something that is admirable. Now, when you have magnificent purity, it means your purity is admirable by others around you, and therefore you are being an example to others in purity. Now, if I have a glass of water, clean water, I've just drawn it from the dispenser or from the tap, water that is good for drinking, and I give it to you in a glass. Can you drink it? Yes, because it's clean, because it's pure. But what if I take a drop of ink from a pen and I drop in that water? Is it still pure? No, it's not pure now because of the ink. So we want to live our lives in purity in terms of Christianity in a way that Christ wants. Now, we look at an example in the Bible to see how someone in the Bible lived a life of purity. And this person is Joseph. You all know about Joseph, right? I'm sure you do. And you remember last time we learned about Joseph and Potiphar's wife? Yes. Now, just to recall the story, Joseph had been sold to Egypt by his brothers because they didn't like him. They hated him. So they sold him to some merchants who took him to Egypt. And when he went to Egypt, he was sold to go and work in Potiphar's house. Now, he worked very well, very diligently, and Potiphar really liked him. Then one day, Potiphar had gone away on a trip. And then Potiphar's wife came to Joseph and wanted Joseph to do something that was not good. Something that would be wrong and would make Joseph to become impure. What did Joseph do? He refused. And he fled. And he ran away from that. To preserve his purity, he ran away. And he didn't do anything that Potiphar's wife wanted. And as a result, he was arrested. But then as we read on from the Bible, we see that God rewarded Joseph for his purity. Because later he was released from prison. And he went on to be governor of Egypt, and he was rewarded with a good position and with prosperity. Is that a good example of purity? Yes, it is. Joseph is a good example of purity. Now, what does it mean to be pure? To live a life of purity? It simply means to be truthful, to be honest in your life. Even when no one is watching, you should do things that are honest and truthful. For example, if your parents left you home alone and they went away, and you know very well when they left you, they said, do not watch any TV before you finish your homework. Or do not play outside because we want you to be in the house and watch the house. What will you do? Will you run away to go and play as soon as they leave? No. If you want to live and as an example, you should stay and do exactly like your parents told you to do. Same way with Christianity, we have the Bible as our guide, and let us strive to live just as Christ wanted us, according to his word in the Bible. And that is to live a life of purity. We are all sinners by nature, we know. So purity requires that even when you get that urge to do something wrong, when you get that urge, you put it to rest, you put it to death, and remember the promises that Christ gave you and live a life of purity just the way Christ wants. So how do we avoid being sinful? How do we keep ourselves pure? There are several ways. First of all, you should avoid watching things that are not good. Because there are things we know that when we watch, there are things that we are not supposed to be watching, that they will bring bad thoughts to our minds. So we use our eye gate to block ourselves from watching things that are not pure. Secondly, we use our ear gate if there are bad things we are not supposed to listen to, bad music or bad language, let's use our ear gates to guard ourselves against bad things that we are not supposed to listen to. We have our mouth gate. If there are bad things you want to say, restrain yourself from using your mouth to say bad things. That is using your mouth as a mouth gate, not to say things that are bad, not to say things that are offensive, things that are against what God wants us to say. Our mouth gate also will use to against things that we are not supposed to consume. Drugs, alcohol, we know we are not supposed to do that as Christians. So let's use our mouth gate also to block ourselves from things that we are not supposed to put in our mouths or to say with using our mouths. Lastly, we have the mind gate. You know, apart from what we see, apart from what we listen to and what we eat or say, there is also bad thoughts that infiltrate our minds, coming from various sources, probably from things we watch or things we hear. So let us also keep our minds pure. Let us avoid thinking bad thoughts about people or thinking very bad thoughts that we are not supposed to think. Let us use our minds as a gate against impurity. And that way we will keep ourselves pure. Our memory verse from today comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 9. And it says, "How can a young man keep his ways pure? By guarding it according to your word." Let's say that again. Psalms 119, verse 9. "How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding according to your word." Thank you and bye-bye.